Hi, this is Steve Brooks. Thanks for tuning in today for our morsel of meat. Today we are going to be looking at Colossians chapter 1, verse 6. The gospel that has come to you, just as in the entire world, this gospel is bearing fruit and growing. So it has been bearing fruit and growing among you from the first day you heard it and understood the grace of God in truth. So the first thing we want to look at is the word here, the gospel. And we see that verse 6 is all describing the gospel. First, he starts on a global scale, saying that the gospel has been growing throughout the entire world. Now, obviously, this is hyperbole in Paul's time because the gospel wasn't throughout the entire world yet. But his point is that everywhere in the world the gospel goes, it bears fruit and it grows. And then he takes it from the global scale in the second half of the verse to apply it to them individually. He says, so it has been bearing fruit and growing among you. And so anywhere in the world the gospel goes, it bears fruit and it grows. Then what is fascinating is as he applies it to them as individuals, he talks about what the key is for the gospel to bear fruit and grow. He says, from the first day you heard it and understood the grace of God in truth. He says, since the day that you understood the grace of God in truth, the gospel has been bearing fruit and growing in you. And in the same way, throughout the world, when people understand the grace of God in truth, the gospel will bear fruit and grow in their lives. Now, when we look at the word understand, it's a fascinating word. This word is the key. It's not good enough that the gospel just goes forth and people hear it. No, people have to understand the grace of God in truth. And so as we look at the Greek word there, it says to become thoroughly acquainted with or to know thoroughly. See, it's not just that we have some kind of understanding of the gospel. No, the word he is using here is that you have a thorough understanding of the gospel. It's something that you are thoroughly acquainted with. We can go over here. I've got Logos pulled up, and we see that site is quoting the Complete Word Study Dictionary. We can go to Louanida, and the definition is to acquire information, probably in a somewhat more exact or detailed form, and perhaps with a focus on what is learned. So he's saying that this knowledge, that you need to have a more exact and detailed knowledge of the gospel, that when you come to that kind of informed, detailed understanding of the grace of God in truth, that's when the gospel bears fruit and increases. And so we have to ask ourselves, we're in America and there's all these different studies on how America is becoming more post-Christian. Here's one by Barna that shows each of the generations are becoming more and more post-Christian. They're less Christian. But in America, we have churches on every corner. There's Christian radio, Christian books, Christian TV. If you name it, it's out there. So why is each generation becoming less and less Christian? To answer that question, I think we just go back to this verse and we meditate on it. That how many times do you turn on the Christian radio or read a Christian book or involve yourself into Christian ministry, and they are offering detailed explanation to help you become thoroughly acquainted with the grace of God in truth? I know in my experience that's not so much. Even in my seminary classes and my doctorate work, I read dozens of books on growing church and building ministry, and there won't even be one chapter in that book on growing church on a detailed understanding of the grace of God in truth. I think people have a superficial understanding of it, but not a deep understanding. And without that deep understanding, without that daily meditation on the grace of God in truth, the gospel does not bear fruit and grow. And we are seeing that in our society. So my challenge to you is to spend your time thinking about the gospel, starting your day with the gospel, going throughout the day meditating on the gospel so that you can understand the grace of God in truth, that you would delve deep into the understanding of the gospel. And as you do that, you'll see the power of God work in your life through the power of the gospel, and the gospel will bear fruit and increase in your life. And as you spread that around to your friends and through whatever means that you have of spreading the gospel, helping people to understand the knowledge, the grace of God in truth, then we'll see the gospel bearing fruit and increasing throughout the entire world.